Please welcome Business Development and Web Analytics, Tryg, Martin Vinter.
Hi, I'm Martin. I work with Tryg Insurance in Copenhagen, Denmark. To give you a bit of context, Tryg Insurance started here with the burning of Copenhagen in 1728. Most of Copenhagen burned, 40% of all buildings gone, and the people of Copenhagen started thinking that an insurance company would be a really nice thing to have. So they started what would later become Tryg Insurance, and most of our IT systems were coded around that time as well. Today, Tryg is Scandinavian's second largest insurance company and the largest in Denmark. We have around 4,000 employees and 4 million customers across the Scandinavian region. Tryg, the word Tryg means something like safe, secure, at peace, confident, peace of mind maybe, is one of those words that are core to a language and therefore a bit difficult to translate. But I think it's a really strong value proposition for an insurance company to have the name peace of mind. And we take that word a little seriously because every year more than £50 million are donated by Tryg's owners, Tryghedsgruppen, to things that promote peace of mind in society in general. Could be things such as medical helicopters, cuddly bears for hospitalized children, or defibrillators at every street corner across Scandinavia. I have one of these just 50 meters from where I live. And there are 100 projects more like these that I could mention. I work as a business developer in Tryg, and I've been a part of Tryg since 2011, and I worked with various aspects of data-driven marketing since then. At one point during my time in Tryg, our CFO asked me if I could come and have a chat with him about some of the things I was doing. And what I didn't know was that that was a job interview. And a few weeks after, I was moved to his new pet project called Customer Analytics. And Customer Analytics is a BI team that focus on using customer data in a more intelligent way, mainly to build predictive models around customer behavior. And one of the things I was very, very keen to do when I first joined Customer Analytics was to show that data from online environments are worth more than we used them for at the time. But before we dive into that case, there's just a few things about insurance that you need to know. And I'm sorry, I do know from first-hand experience insurance is super boring, but please bear with me. It's just one slide. The thing you need to know is that in the UK and the US, an insurance typically lasts just 1 year. And after that year, the insurance is cancelled automatically, and that sort of pushes the customer back into the marketplace. So for that reason, it's fairly easy to predict when a customer is likely to leave the insurance company because it's around that date, right? In Scandinavia, it works a little differently. Insurance is renewed automatically each year, and for that reason, we have customers that stayed with us for a lifetime, and many customers stays with us for decades. But even so, approximately 2% of the customer base leaves Tryg each year. And when you have a large portfolio of customers, it doesn't require you to move the decimals very far before you have a pretty nice business case. So if you can prevent just a little bit of that churn, you will have a really nice business case. All right, so my hypothesis when I joined Customer Analytics was that that even though we can identify that the customer is likely to leave, we still have an issue around the response. Because even though you have identified that a customer is likely to leave us, that doesn't mean he's sitting around with the missus every evening talking about insurance and whether or not they should leave to a different company. I mean, who does that? Figuring out how to respond to an elevated churn risk for a particular customer is a challenge, right? And we happen to have this, this page called Customers Universe. It's where you go, you log in to see what sort of engagement you have with us. You get a nice overview of your policies, the costs. You can even see the actual policy. And my hypothesis was that, at least to some extent, customers log into this page because they're comparing us with a quote they got from somebody else. So that was my hypothesis. Whether or not we could prove that logging into this page means that the customer is about to leave us. And as it turned out, when customers log into this page, the churn risk increases for that customer in the period of 4 months after. And that difference was significant. That was a real eye-opener to us in terms of what we can do with online data. I think what we came to realize was this, that the way we have done statistical modeling in Tryg historically had a potential for improvement. As an insurance company, we've done statistical modeling for rather long time. After all, that's how insurance work, right? When you buy an insurance, you tap into a statistical model that predicts your risk as a person for that policy, and the price for the insurance reflects this risk with a markup, of course. But the way we have done modeling historically was around static data, stuff like demographics and CRM data. These are things that doesn't change very often by nature. Your age changed once a year, for example. But data that comes from online environments are data that change all the time. And it reflects what's going on right now. It's data sources such as on-site behavior and advertising. So demographics and CRM data doesn't show intent, but the data we get from online environment does show intent because it's about what the visitor did just now. So with our historical modeling, we could say something like competition for this customer is generally not in our favor because he could get the same insurance cheaper somewhere else perhaps. With online data, we could say something like, and she's probably thinking about leaving Tryg right now because she did this or that on our website. And secondly, we could say something like, this customer ought to be interested in buying home content insurance because that would trigger a discount, or because she has a house or whatever. And with our web data, we could add to that, and he's looking at that insurance right now. So there's a huge step up to be taken by using data that shows intent and has actuality. And for us, that translates to website data. And Telium helped in two ways. The first way was to provide means and methods to use PII data in a way that is compliant with the GDPR regulations. And that's important because PII data is in most cases, the only means you have to identify a visitor. The emails they provide on your website, the logins and so on, those are keys that ties what happens online to the identity of the customer in your offline systems. And the second thing Telium provided was means and methods to bring data from our website and into our data warehouse in real time. If you look at it the other way around, what can data science bring to our websites? The answer is perhaps a bit more obvious. Our current way of building websites has to do with building static content that doesn't change. But if we had advanced analytics baked into our website, we could target the contents for our visitors. So the logic behind a static website is, in general, the sales argument works really well across all our customers. But for some customers, it's probably better to say something else because they might be in a different place or have a different state of mind. The logic behind a static website is that more leads equals more sales, and that's better. But for some customers, you would really want to promote self-service and shut down your paid media. And this needs to happen in real time. And why is that? I have just one example to show you that really shows how real time makes a difference to us. As mentioned, we have this page where visitors go to log in to see their insurance. And when that happens, we have about 2 seconds to decide what to show to the customer. We have on this customer's universe these recommendations that we show to visitors that says something like, you ought to buy this cover, or you ought to decrease your deductible or increase it, or could be a number of things. It turned out that customers really loved these messages. It was high engagement content, in other words. And when you find content that really drives whatever it is you want on your website, conversions, that's when you start optimizing, right? So we are currently building models around these recommendations that will do a better job of recommending something that the visitor is likely to respond positively to. But during this login, this 2 seconds process, we have a chance to know the customer. The customer's identity becomes known during the login process by nature, and that is typically the first time that happens during a website visit. And during these 2 seconds, the identity then becomes stitched with his online data. So now we know the customer, and we also know what he did on the website for the first time during the visit. And that then becomes input to the model. And the reason this is important is that the recent behavior on the website shows what is going on for this customer right now. So that is really important input to the model. What we wouldn't want to see is something like this. Please wait while we find something to sell you. It doesn't work that way. Nobody wants to wait for a commercial, right? So real-time matters. There's another feature in MarTech tools that I really like to think is a deal breaker. I call it plasticity. There's this quality of being easily shapeable. Most MarTech tools have it. Most data warehouses doesn't. I have one example that shows how this makes a difference for us. It has to do with CRM marketing and DMP marketing, and it's fresh off the insights of Audience Stream. I built it just weeks ago, and I picked this example because it didn't work. And that makes or proves an important point to me. But anyways, I'll take you through the background of this. In Tryg, obviously, as in many other business, we run CRM marketing, stuff like email marketing. And typically, when we send emails to our customers, we get high engagement. Customers read the stuff we send them. And it's highly targeted, so we can segment based on anything, basically. And in many cases, it's quite successful. The thing with email, though, is that it is, by definition, a one-shot thing. Once you get an email, you either do what it says, or you don't, and it's out the door, right? You typically don't get a second chance to communicate a message via email to the same customer at the same point in time. Because that would annoy the visitor, and he would leave you, and you would never get to say anything to him again. DMP marketing, on the other hand, is low engagement. It can be targeted, but not really that well. The thing that makes a difference here is that it's repeatable. So basically, you can add reminders to something that works really well. That's a nice feature, we thought. And what we did was to build something that looks like this. Inside our CRM system, we built these tree-like structures of selections on customers. So typically you start with the entire customer base, you select those that you have a permission for, then you select those that are qualified for the message, and so on and so forth. And one of the things you can do in this tree-like structure is to make a connector call to Audience Stream, which sends the name of the campaign that we want to communicate to this visitor, along with our priorities and a key for that visitor, some PII data that enables us to find the same visitor from our website. And now we have a basis for stitching, which brings up a new visitor profile with the data from our CRM system, along with the cookies and keys that we need to communicate with our DMP. Lovely. So now we can show banners to a visitor that we have identified as a potential recipient of an email in our CRM system. And we use this to generate reminders for our emails. And actually, shortly after we built it, it dawned on us that we didn't really need the email, did we? We could actually do this with visitors that we don't have a permission for. So we actually gained a new target audience here, which wasn't the intention, but it's a nice side effect for sure. Inside Audience Stream, if we pop open the hood, we have a logic that looks something like this. In the top, we got the campaign name and the priority of the campaign. They go into a tally where they are scored up against each other. And the favorite from that tally, the top item, is what we want to communicate to the customer. And that then goes into a new tally, which are all the campaigns that the visitor is qualified for in Audience Stream. We have other sources, product retargeting, for example. And whatever comes out as the favorite from that prioritization is what we communicate to AdForm. The results. Now we hold our breaths, right? We sent 10,000 emails. And based on those 10,000 emails, we were able to serve 263 impressions. That's like, in a DMP, that's nothing. You pay by the thousands when you run banner advertising. So 263 impressions, it doesn't count. But what tells me that we are onto something is the fact that based on those 263 banner impressions, we were able to produce 2 leads. And Tryg has a conversion rate on these leads of around 50%, so we now have 4,000,001 customer, and that one customer, that's all me. But the CPA, the cost per lead, was a staggering 3 krona. Normally, this number is around 50 to 100 krona in Tryg. And that really tells me that if we could get this working, we would really have something great. And actually, since I made these slides, I found the bug and squatted it, and we have cookie matches going through the roof now. So I think we'll get this working really nicely, but it didn't make it to the slides. And it also ruins my story, so never mind. So let's assume this didn't work, right? And the reason I'm telling you this, the point to it, is that that's okay, because plasticity made these feasible and practical. Now imagine I had built this logic inside a data warehouse, which would be the main competitor to Audience Stream, right? And it would be a fine place to build it, except that if I had this built inside a data warehouse, it would be guys like data scientists or data engineers that would have done the jobs involved in getting this logic to work. And those guys don't come cheap, and they have a huge backlog as well. So if you have them build something for you, you better have something that works, right? And around the time that I built this, I wasn't sure that it was going to work. And the fact of the matter was, to begin with, it didn't. So chances are, if my only option for building this would have been the data warehouse, I probably wouldn't have wanted to take the risk and have it built. So this illustrates how plasticity is an important feature to have as a business. I hope these slides illustrate a process that we have seen in Tryg when it comes to web data. Web data used to be something you used for reporting and analysis on the channels that produce the data. So data from AdForm showed something about what was going on inside AdForm and how it was performing, and data from our website showed how our website was performing, and so on and so forth. It was used to tell us what was going on in that channel in isolation, right? And what we're seeing now is that online data is moving towards being used to predict state of mind of customers, and where online data used to be, there we are, used to be something we used to illustrate value production processes in isolated channels, it now provides means to enhance that same value production. It used to be limited to an online scope, and today, Stitch customer data shows cross-channel journeys and value production across many channels. So, where online data used to be something that was sidelined and secondary, it is today core business data and really important to many parts of the business. If you want to sort of let yourself inspire by this journey, I think some of the things you need to ensure is that visitors are identified whenever it's possible on your website. So whenever a visitor gives a piece of PII data on your website, you need to make sure that that PII is reflected in your data warehouse. And you need to feed your data layer into your data warehouse. You need to continuously expand your ability to use customer data in any channel. And you need to retain and expand your ability to build and test complex logic at low risk and with a low investment. Thank you for listening.